The company Lamzu has consistently amazed us, putting out great mouse after great mouse since day one. Today we're going to be taking a look at their latest release, a small symmetrical mouse called the Maya.
Now Lamzu did send this mouse out to us, but as always this will not affect our thoughts in any way.
In terms of click latency, the Maya is quite good once you adjust its settings in software. At default settings, we measure the click latency of Lamzu mice to be around 10.1 milliseconds, which is quite high, and potentially even getting to a point where it would affect you in-game. However, if you lower the debounce of the Lamzu mice down to 0 milliseconds in software, the click latency drops to just 1.8 milliseconds at 1000 Hz polling, 1.2 milliseconds at 2000 Hz polling, and down to just 0.8 milliseconds at 4000 Hz polling, which is on par with Pulsar mice, but just a bit behind top companies like Logitech and Razer.
We've recently designed a new rig and wrote a program to more accurately measure the motion latency of one mouse relative to another. For our testing, we used the Zowie ZA13C as a control to test against. Using this new method, we measured the motion latency of Lamzu mice to be around 1 millisecond slower than the ZA13C at 1000 Hz. At 4000 Hz, the Maya is faster than the ZA13C by around 0.4 milliseconds, putting it among the fastest wireless mice on the market.
If you want to see more of this kind of testing, remember to hit that subscribe button.
Polling stability on the Maya is quite good at 1000, 2000, and 4000 Hz. The motion sync implementation is solid, similar to other mice using 3395 sensors and convex firmware for Nordic MCUs. In terms of battery life, the Maya is fairly average. Lamzu advertises 70 hours of battery life at 1000 Hz and around 25 hours at 4000 Hz, which does appear to be accurate in our testing. We do have plans to design a dedicated continuous motion battery life tester in the future, which would allow us to provide more concrete numbers.
For reference, in this section, my hands are around 18 by 10 centimeters, while Eric's are around 18.5 by 10 centimeters.
The Maya is a smaller sized symmetrical mouse which has light yet noticeable side curvature and a thin centralized hump. The small back flare is not intrusive but does allow me to fairly comfortably brace my fingers against it in an aggressive grip. The Maya flares out to a bit of a rounded but still sharp corner at the front, which creates some ring finger support for those who extend their fingers. However, the sharp corner combined with the angle sides may make it difficult to wrap the ring finger around the front of the mouse. The hump on the Maya feels relatively low and narrow, but also somewhat angular. The angular nature of the hump results in it pushing more into the hand than other mice with humps towards the middle, and gives it a bit more stability. For those who rely heavily on inner hand micro adjustments, the hump allows for a good amount of freedom. However, the angle of the hump is extremely low, meaning my hand has to rest pretty low in order to get that palm contact. There seems to be a trend of calling just about every new symmetrical mouse with a centralized hump a GPX clone or a GPX mini, and I can tell you that the Maya feels almost nothing like a GPX. The sides are more curved and more heavily slanted than the incredibly flat sides of the Superlight. Additionally, the hump of the Maya is at a lower angle than that of the Superlight and doesn't push as deep into the palm. To me, the Maya feels a bit like a Lamzu Atlantis Mini but with a wider base as well as a lower and narrower hump. From the top, both mice are similar in overall width, however the grip width on the Maya is considerably wider than that of the Atlantis Mini, making the sides of the Maya feel less angled. The Maya does not provide as much stability as the Atlantis Mini, but is a bit safer for micro adjustments. Another mouse that shares some similarities with the Maya is the Final Mouse Ultralight X. The two mice feel similar in size due to their similar dimensions. The Maya, however, has slightly more angled sides and feels a bit taller at both the hump and the buttons. Additionally, the Maya has a slightly more curved back flare which creates a more defined spot to lock the pinky against when curled back. And finally, the front corner of the Maya is further forward than that of the ULX. Personally, I perform relatively well in this shape, though I do still prefer mice with larger humps towards the back to support my aggressive claw grip. Overall though, the Maya has a pretty good and safe shape which I would most recommend for aggressive claw grip for those with 16.5 by 9 to 21 by 11 cm hands, a relaxed claw grip for those with 15 by 8.5 to 18.5 by 10 cm hands, pincer claw for those with 17.5 by 9.5 to 21 by 10 cm hands, knuckle claw for those with 18 by 8.5 to 21 by 10.5 cm hands, any kind of fingertip grip for those with hands larger than 18 by 10 centimeters, and relaxed fingertip for those with 17 by 9.5 to 20 by 11 centimeter hands.
At a weight of just 45 grams, the Maya feels extraordinarily light, with it only being beat out in our collection by the G-Wolves HTX and the Final Mouse Ultralight X. Additionally, Lamzu's weight balancing is perfect as always, meaning the mouse feels effortless to move around no matter how you're gripping it or picking it up. In terms of build quality, our unit of the Maya feels really solid, with no noticeable flexing anywhere on the mouse. If you squeeze really hard under the front side button, you can get a bit of flex, but this will in no way affect regular use. Lamzu mice in the past have had relatively open bottom plates, but the Maya is something else, with practically the entire bottom plate being completely cut out with full access to the PCB. Honestly, this is what I'd consider going a bit too far for weight reductions, because as it stands now, you can literally touch the pins of the switch without opening the mouse. The main buttons on the Maya use Huano transparent blue shell pink dot switches. They have a fairly light click feel, similar to the Atlantis Mini, making them extremely spammable. There is minimal pre-travel and some post in all areas of the button, except for the very front, which has a moderate amount of pre and an excessive amount of post travel, which does result in a somewhat mushy bottom out if you're clicking in that very front of the mouse. These are by no means bad clicks, but they are a little disappointing compared to other Lamzu mice, which have had such amazing clicks. The side buttons on the Maya are well placed and well shaped. They have a nice tactile feel with minimal pre and post. However, they are on the heavier side and honestly feel a little stiff, but they are still reasonably spammable. And while not being my favorite side buttons, they are still perfectly fine for use in game. The scroll on the Maya is probably Lamzu's best yet. It's reasonably well tensioned with nice defined steps while also being quite smooth. The scroll click is very easy to activate and has a nice tactile feel. However, the rubber on the scroll wheel does have a bit of give when you press it, which makes the scroll wheel a bit harder to spam and just kind of has this strange feeling while pressing it.
The Maya has a slightly rubberized coating, which feels quite grippy to me. Personally, I like this coating a lot, but I have heard others have issues with sweat collecting on the surface, resulting in worse grip. As someone with pretty sweaty hands, this hasn't affected me much, but the previous Lamzu coatings did handle sweat a bit better. Lamzu skates are some of the best stock skates on the market, and the Maya is no exception to that rule. These are super smooth and relatively quick skates. There is absolutely no need to replace these with aftermarket feet. Due to the adjustable debounce, the Maya can register fairly high CPS, though there does appear to be a cap of around 28 clicks per second on mice with complex Nordic MCU implementations. The light and bouncy buttons make this mouse pretty easy to jitter on, as long as you don't place your fingers at the front of the button. I can hit 13 to 15 CPS on this mouse, which is similar to most others. For butterfly clicking, the buttons aren't particularly wide or narrow, but do protrude enough to comfortably hit with both fingers. I can hit upwards of 20 CPS when butterflying on this mouse. For drag clicking, the coating is reasonable, but the button tensioning makes drag clicking a bit inconsistent. Additionally, the mouse caps out at around 28 CPS, meaning I do not recommend it for this clicking method.
The Maya is a fantastic mouse, with its only flaws being slightly subpar click feel and possibly not the greatest coating. For those reasons, the Maya lands on S tier in our tier list. In terms of value, the Maya sits in a similar spot to other Lamzu mice. At $92 for the mouse and another $14 for the 4K dongle, this places the Maya right in the middle end of pricing when it comes to gaming mice. More than some of the more budget offerings from places like Mechkeys, but less than some of the really expensive mice from the likes of companies such as Logitech and Razer.